Looks like we're officially live. I see stream is live.
Hello,
So,
everyone.
all right.
Hello.
So, hello, everyone. Welcome to Planning for Special Needs. We want you to live the life imagined. I'm Kelly Gannon, and this is Monica Mann. We are with Eli's Village, which is a subsidiary of James River Wealth Advisors. So some of the big questions that we get asked by families are, will my child be able to live independently? How do they get the services that they need? Who will care for my child when I'm no longer here? And one of the really big ones is, how much money do I need to support them over their lifetime? So we're going to be able to answer some of those questions for you today, maybe not all of them, but we're going to at least give you an idea of how you take the steps to answer these questions for your family. So what is special needs life planning? Special needs life planning addresses the needs of every family member and the resources and solutions needed to support the family. Our goal is to build the plan that supports your family to live the life imagined. So we take a holistic approach and look at everything going on and try to put that into a plan for you to carry forward in the future. Now, there's three very important aspects to your planning. There's looking at the assets that you have available to you and protecting those. There's having legal protections in place to make sure the funds flow appropriately where you need and want them to go. And then there's protecting your family and being able to utilize the resources that are available to you. So we're going to go through each of these steps. We usually start with asset protection because the amount of assets you have kind of dictate the path you go down for some of the other resources. And we start by building a financial plan. A lot of ways this looks like your traditional family financial plan, but it takes in more things into consideration. So we start with cash flow and budget analysis. We look at beneficiaries. We go through your current investments. We're trying to do all this tax efficiently. And then we look at some of the benefits that are available to you. And we're going to do a little deeper dive into that. So we really start with cash flow and budget. So it's how much money do you have available to you? Are you comfortably paying your bills? Are you able to save and meet your own needs? Right? It's really hard to take care of someone else if you can't take care of yourself. One of the other things we want to look at is, are you leveraging benefits that are available to you, whether it's through insurance or programs, public benefits. So we want to look at make sure we're taking advantage of everything that's available to us. And then I've developed an expense calculator. So what we want to look at is, how much does it cost to care for an individual with a disability? If they can't provide their own income, how much income do we need for them to live a happy, healthy, engaged lifestyle? So what we're looking at here is we're looking at paid and unpaid resources. So there's things you may do for your child that you would have to pay somebody if they weren't here. So what are your paid and unpaid supports? And we want to take all of that into account and look at, this is what it costs to care for them now. And if you're not here, this is what it would cost. So how much money do we need in the future? A big part of protecting assets is reviewing beneficiaries. We do want to make sure that assets are going to flow to a trust or to people where it should flow. We don't want to endanger any public benefits or lose eligibility. We want to look at your current investment plan. So do your investments align with your current and future goals? Again, are your needs being met? Are you doing things in the most tax efficient manner? Are your assets going to pass tax efficiently? You hear about really big estates that celebrities or whoever may have millions of dollars and they lose 50% or more of their estate to taxes. We don't want that to happen. And then even if you're doing all of this yourself, you may be doing a great job. It's probably worth having a professional review it just to see if there's any holes in your plan or if there's places you can tighten up. So I would just encourage you to at least have a professional review it, even if you're not going to use them ongoing. Also covered under kind of that asset protection is the use of ABLE accounts. So for those of you familiar with ABLE accounts, you know that they're used for tax deferred, or they can be tax-free money available to an individual with a disability. The money goes into the account. It can be used like a checking or savings account. There's some investment options under ABLE now in Virginia. and the money can grow. If the money is pulled out for a qualified disability expense, which is any expense related to the designated beneficiary having a disability, it can be almost anything, then the money comes out tax-free. So these accounts are for anybody who is diagnosed with a disability prior to age 26, they're eligible for these accounts. It can be a great tool to use. We also like to look at insurance, long-term care, and benefits analysis. So insurance is a tool that can address funding gaps. If you feel like you're going to need your retirement savings to live on, but you also want to leave money for your child to use in the future, then life insurance may fill that bucket when you're gone if you've spent down some of your retirement assets. If you're working, disability insurance provides replacement income should you get injured. Having a disability is actually one of the leading reasons people take Social Security early and end up taking pay cuts basically for the rest of their life. Long-term care is something we want to look at to make sure you're cared for in your old age. It also protects assets that may be left to a child if your long-term care is expensive and is covered through insurance. And then we also want to look at employer benefits. Are you accessing your health insurance now to pay for therapies or other medical expenses versus out of pocket? Again, that's saving more money for the long term. The next step, so that was asset protection, right? We covered a lot there, but it's basically building a financial plan to look at long-term planning. So the next step is legal protection. So really important legal documents to have: a letter of intent, a life plan, wills, power of attorneys, medical directives, decision-making agreements, whether it's POA, guardianship, microboard, your trust accounts. We want to make sure all your legal documents are together and in one place. So really, the first part is starting and making sure you have estate planning documents. Do you and your spouse or other caregivers have wills, POAs, medical directives, a trust if a family trust makes sense? A trust will protect family assets as well as provide instructions for the future. If you've got an individual with a disability that may be receiving benefits or eligible for benefits in the future, you may want to set up a special needs trust. This allows them to access the government benefits, but also provide supplemental income without endangering those benefits. And then we have decision making. So a lot of people want to jump straight to guardianship. That's not always the right option, right? So we have several options here, whether it's guardianship, supported decision making, just a power of attorney, microboard. And Monica is going to jump in and talk a little more about those options.
We got one more.
Oh, sorry. This just goes more into detail. Apparently I talked too much in the last one about wills, POAs, right? They provide guidance on your affairs. They allow people to step in and help you if you need help making medical decisions, financial decisions, if you're incapacitated. That family trust can provide a specific set of instructions. Basically, it also helps you potentially avoid probate, so it can protect your assets and distribute them equitably or however you see fit. The special needs trust or supplemental income trust provides a resource to a disabled individual while still allowing them to receive government benefits that they may have from a waiver services. And really, like I said, trust can be used to address equitable but not necessarily equal distributions of assets to your heirs. This is a little more detail on special needs trust. Apparently, I was very excited about those. Oh, actually, go back to that. Sorry. So there are three types of special needs trust, which is important to know about. So a first party trust is established with assets in the disabled individual's name, so they can still access government funding. You will often see these used if someone is in a car accident or has some kind of medical event or something and they receive settlement money. So if they've received some kind of legal settlement and it's going to go to them, instead of giving it directly to them, it goes into a first party special needs trust. And from there, the assets can be used for their supplemental benefit, but they can still receive government aid. And if they pass away, it does require Medicaid to be paid back upon their death. So if they used any government benefits, Medicaid resources, that would get paid back before the assets would move on to family members. Most people for a special needs individual or disabled individual establish a third-party special needs trust, and that is established on behalf of the person with a disability. It does not require a Medicare payback. Beneficiaries can be named, successor beneficiaries can be named in those accounts. So if the disabled individual that the account was set up for passes away, it can go on to siblings, charitable organizations, whoever you see fit. A third-party trust can hold property. We're actually going to, before I get on that, we're going to have another slide on that. I forgot about it. So pooled trust is usually run by a foundation. A pooled trust allows people to pool their assets together. It is an individual beneficiary within a larger trust. It allows for scales of economy. So people pool their resources, but you have your individual account that's available to you. It used to be that a pooled trust, the foundation was the beneficiary, but you can now list beneficiaries if you're choosing. So for people that may not have as large of an asset pool, a pooled trust might make a lot of sense. So when you're establishing a special needs trust, again, it's a legal document. This requires an attorney. But you want to think before you go into there who the trustee is going to be. That means who's going to run the trust and oversee and make decisions. Who is the beneficiary going to be? If you have a disabled individual, that's usually the primary beneficiary of the trust. But you might want to think of where you want the money left if anything happens to them. One of the really big questions is funding the trust. So you want to make sure that the trust, there is a funding mechanism for the trust, because otherwise, if the trust sits there empty, it's just a legal document and it's not really going to provide support. And then you also have to think about when you want to fund the trust. So for some people, they may list retirement accounts as the trust as the beneficiary. They may leave life insurance policies to the trust, so it may be funded at their passing. Some people may choose to fund the trust while they're alive. Maybe they have a rental property that's producing income. They can put that into the trust, so the trust is generating income. It really depends on each individual situation. And then the legal documents are drafted by an attorney. It's notarized, and then assets can be placed into them. The trust can open a bank account, an investment account, again, acquire property. So you just need to make sure that whoever is in charge of the trust knows how, understands how it works and can make these decisions. So again, I just mentioned life insurance is a very useful tool. It's how a lot of people choose to fund a trust. They may not have enough money currently to fund a trust or to have, a large enough pool of money, but life insurance is a way you can create a lot of money at your passing. The example I just used, where it can hold real estate and income producing assets. Real estate can also be left with a transfer on death deed in most states. One thing to really consider, though, is what assets you are going to put into a trust. So a trust hits the highest tax brackets much earlier than your personal tax rate. So if the trust is producing a lot of income and it's not being distributed, you could be paying more taxes on that. So it's very important to kind of take a look at if you are doing things tax efficiently. And then if you think about having real estate in there, who's going to manage that and make sure it's kept up to date and on top of things. So now we talked a little bit about able accounts and we've talked about trust. So the question is which one should your child have? And the answer is they might need both. They really, they serve similar goals, but they can be used slightly differently. There are also some limits to how much money you should put in an able account, where there really are not limits to how much money you can have in a trust.
Now it's my turn. So now we're going to talk some about decision making. Just like every individual is very unique and different, so is the decision making process. So when deciding the best way to support an individual with decision making, you want to consider your loved one's strengths and the wide range of decision making models. So some of those models are a power of attorney, supported decision making agreement, a microboard, or guardianship. We're going to dive into those just a little bit more. So one option, as I said, is a power of attorney, which is a document that identifies who can help make decisions on an individual's behalf when they're not able to. And there's a few different ways you can do that to help increase a person's independence, or maybe divide up support amongst the circle of support of that individual. So you could have a general power of attorney who's kind of helping with both medical, financial, the spectrum of decisions. Or you could have a financial power of attorney who's just helping with those financial choices, or the medical power of attorney. I have seen families before divide this up where they had a family member who was a nurse, and so they took the lead with the medical power of attorney. And they had another family member who was a CPA, and they took the lead with financial. And so it kind of helped share that weight of the decision making. So it can be used in a couple different ways. Another model is a supported decision-making agreement, which is a formalized circle of support that's coming to wrap around an individual to help them make decisions. The great thing with this is an individual maintains all of their legal rights and decision-making. They're the ones kind of making that final decision. But they have this circle of support that they've picked to help them and make those decisions. So maybe you want someone to help you make decisions about where you want to live, and you want someone else to help you make decisions about your medical team or whatnot. You're going to outline that all in one agreement. You're going to identify kind of who you want to help you, when you want them to help you, how they want to help you. And it's just a really good person-centered tool to help increase that independence and enhance decision making. Another model is microboards. They are somewhat similar to a supported decision-making agreement, as it is a formal circle of support. You've identified people to kind of rally beside you and help you make decisions. But where this does differ is that you can have a guardian and have a microboard. In that case, a lot of times this then proves to kind of be a resource for that guardian, where they're not making all those decisions on their own, and they have a team to turn to kind of help make those tough choices. Another thing that makes a microboard stand out is that it is a little more formalized, formal. It is actually a non-stock corporation that is filed with the SEC. At least that's how it works here in Virginia. And so you do have to have a formal board of directors. You do file minutes, and there's a filing fee. So it just kind of helps the team kind of be held accountable and maintain those regular meetings. Microboard does have to meet at least annually, but as we all know, decisions happen way more often than that. I would suggest they meet at least quarterly, but maybe more often depending on what's going on in a person's life. And then guardianship is, I feel like, the more commonly known of these options, but it is the most restrictive option. When someone has a guardian, they've been deemed or found incompetent by the court system. So then they have a person appointed to kind of make decisions on their behalf. And this could be total guardianship, or sometimes people just have a medical guardian, but it's an option that's out there. So the next set of our 3 phases is family protection plan, and that is kind of us helping just from the day-to-day, kind of the developmental services pieces. So we do kind of a wide range of support here. Starting with transition planning, which is when you're getting ready to age out of school, helping kind of navigate that process and talk through different options. This is probably where we're going to talk a lot about that decision-making options and deployment and what your big goals are for life, to help plan for those things, plan how much money you're going to need, figure out what services we want to link to, those types of things. Here at Eli's Village, through our family services process, we also help link people to public benefits and help navigate those. So really helping make sure we know all of our options that are out there, how to apply for them. Someone to kind of help talk you through the long application process, or, when all the services don't speak to each other, kind of just someone to vent to. And then kind of helping coordinate those services once we link to them. Another thing that we do is kind of just helping outline your plans for the future and what you want to obtain with your life or your loved one's life. And kind of helping to map that out, figure out other resources we might be able to utilize. We like to develop a care plan, making sure that you have in one spot, a history, your medical history, and what medications you are on, and what doctors you see, and who is your support team, so that it's organized in a way that if something happens to you, that there's someone else that can jump in and kind of help take over those things. And it also helps track like when your medical appointments are we going to all of those? Because as we all know, we can't pour from an empty cup. So it's important that we're taking care of mom and dad's health and wellness as well as the individual with a disability. We talked a lot about public benefits, but maybe not everyone's aware of all of them. So we do always like to highlight some of the main ones. Some of them are means tested, which is why we talked about the ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. So in those models, often you can't have more than $2,000 of assets in your name. So those are your SSI, your Medicaid, whether it's just Medicaid insurance or Medicaid as in the Medicaid waiver, SNAP, which is also formerly known as food stamps, or a housing choice voucher. So that's another option that's not as well known, but it was HUD or Section 8, but there is the State Rental Assistance Program, which provides this housing choice voucher, which will help with the cost of rent for an individual with a disability if they wanted to live in their own apartment. So maybe you don't have a DD waiver to cover the cost of a group home expense, but maybe you could utilize the housing choice voucher as an option and then bring in some support. And then you also, other benefits to consider would be SSDI and Medicare. So that is our method of special needs planning. Just kind of a recap, we kind of pull that all together into what we call here an ELI plan. So we're really looking at the asset protection, so understanding your current and future costs, making sure we're going to be able to meet those needs with sufficient funding. Legal protection, so making sure we have all those appropriate legal documents in place, that we've figured out what works best for our families. And then the family protection plan is kind of a combination of advocating and figuring out what we need for the future, but also making sure we have the support we need today. So that all pulls together. We make an ELI's plan, which is like, for our families, it's a giant binder with all of this information plugged in. We make our recommendations. We help work with legal specialists and tax specialists, and we kind of make sure all those documents are housed in one big binder, that if anything ever happened, you have it all in one spot. And so we like to make sure that we have that peace of mind when assets, investments, insurance, and estate plans are properly coordinated ahead of time. It helps make sure families aren't forced to make compromising decisions in a time of crisis. It's always great to plan ahead so you don't have as much to worry about in those moments. And then our model, we service throughout the state of Virginia. If you're here in Virginia, in Richmond, we'll meet with you in person, but if you can also meet via Zoom or however, we can work throughout the state. Our services are billed with 1.25% of assets under management plus $350 a month fee, that's our ongoing services. So we're developing that ELI plan, and then we're meeting with you regularly. So it might be that, there will be quarterly meetings where we talk about financials and just what's going on, check and base, making recommendations. But then there's also ongoing support for me from the Family Services Division. So maybe that you want to have a touch point with me weekly because we're in a crisis and we need to make sure we find a solution, or just kind of for that peace of mind. Or maybe more of a monthly check-in of how things are going. We let you guys really set the pace of that. And then we understand the model's not for everybody. Maybe you just want us to help you figure out a plan or help you review the plan you already have in place. So we do also offer a one-time development of an ELI plan, which is a $5,000 fee. Is there any questions you guys may have for us? We'd love to answer them.
Awesome. So let me just check my messages and DMs. I didn't see any pop up in the chat, but let me just hop over to Facebook and see if I had any that sent us a DM.
I was going to say, we can hang out for a few minutes anyway, because I know sometimes it takes you a minute to formulate questions and type all that in.
A lot of information. A lot of information. Such a broad spectrum.
Oh, there we go.
How long does it take to normally to finish a plan? It really depends on each family. We've had plans that we've done in a couple weeks where they kind of already had a lot of this stuff in place and wanted us to kind of look it over for them and provide reassurance. We've had others that use like 6 months or so.
Yeah, sometimes it can take up to 6 months. It just depends on how quickly people get us information and then how busy your life is that you can meet with us. It usually does include several meetings to get to know, understand you and your family and make sure that we're doing a comprehensive plan.
And then someone else asked,
Yes.
can you talk about how Social Security severe benefits may disqualify my unmarried adult child from Medicaid services?
This we would have to see exactly what was going on because you can qualify. You can get Social Security survivor benefits and Medicaid. So I would need to know more to answer that question.
It's probably the income is becoming above the income limit, but yeah, we'd have to have more specifics on that.
I mean, you're welcome to send us an email with specifics and see if we can answer the question. But Monica, like Monica said, it probably has to do with income limit. So we would have to know like all sources of income to be able to answer that question.
And I'm just going to drop you guys' Eli's Village phone number and email address in the chat.
Perfect. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
There you go.
And that'll get you straight to me so we can reach out from there.
And then she said, do we reach out or do we need to set an appointment?
Yeah, so if you email that inquiry at Eli's Village or Mann at Eli's Village, you'll get me and I can work with you to schedule an appointment either here in our office or via Zoom, whatever works best for y'all.
Let's see. And then I had one, it falls under legal protection, and they said, does the trust do the trust require a minimum amount of money to be in the accounts?
Depending on where, so you can set up, usually when you set up a trust, they'll recommend funding it with like $10 or something just so it stays open. So you could set up a trust bank account and put $10 or $100 in there. Some, if you want an investment account, some investment companies do require minimums, but the trust itself is just a legal document. It does not. There's some people that really, they might have that $10 in the trust and then it gets funded at somebody's death when a life insurance policy flows into that account.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did anyone else have any other questions?
Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah.
We hope this was helpful. We do like making sure people are making good decisions and being a source of education.
And then for anyone wondering, the Facebook Live will stay on the Facebook. And then if you'd like to share it with any of your family or friends, you can share it via Facebook, or you can also share it from YouTube as well. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. It was great connecting with all you guys.
It was nice connecting with you all too.
All right.